All right, today we have Maujara, handstand teacher from INEX Circus School, professional hand balancer with us, and we're gonna talk a little bit about handstand. And yeah, for starters, we share a little bit maybe about your background, where you come from, how do you get in touch with the handstand, and yes.
Okay. Well, my background was a little mixed between an early stage of training handstands when I was a kid, and this was early stage because for me was just in that moment was simply a hobby, and so I just learned to walk around with my hands, not really with any method or any teacher. It was like a playful activity. So that was the first background, and probably was good to have it later, because it also meant that I did not have to, that I could already handle more training without a risk injury because my body was more adapted to handstands. Um, and then I have a little background also in floor acrobatics. I did cheerleading actually for some years,
Mm-hmm.
and I did 1 year of gymnastics, artistic gymnastics, when I was 18. So it was also late to start,
Mm-hmm.
but it was only 1 year of doing apparatus, and it was the floor also what I liked the most, just
Mm-hmm.
jumping around and tumbling around. And then I switched back to handstands when I was 20 years old. Yes, so that was 2010, something like this.
How
Yeah.
old are you now?
I am now 32.
32.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So 12 years of professional hand
Yes.
balancing. Wow.
Yes, so it's been 12 years of training handstands in a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I've had some periods of rest, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to always keep the practice and just keep it as part of my daily routine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah.
And it came really natural to you as a kid. So I think we all, or many kids are just playing around as a kid and trying to do handstand,
Yeah.
and maybe when I look at you now, I think like maybe you could do it even as a kid. Just fi-
Yeah. I think as a kid, I always mention this because
mhm.
again, I wasn't trained in handstands. I was
Mhm.
just playing with them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it did help, of course, and that's why when people sometimes ask me how long I've been training,
Mhm.
I never know how to answer, because I am like, well, if you count all these years
Mhm.
of playfulness and just learning to walk on my hands, also, and in a way was good, but in another way, I had to work a lot to get, for example, a proper alignment and
Mhm.
understand technique.
Yeah.
So it was like a double, how do we say that? Yeah, like,
Double-edged sword.
exactly, double-edged sword, because um, it's not that I had to relearn, but I had to make my body more efficient,
Yeah.
uh, and when I wanted to do handstands professionally, I already knew a bit from research how a handstand should look,
Mhm.
and from the hand balancer that I was following back then.
Who was
So,
it?
well, back then it was, I think, one of the first I saw as that started late, and that's
Mhm.
why it was inspiring for me, was Yuval Ayalon.
Mhm.
There is another Yuval too that I met, but later, Yuval Oz from
Mm.
Israel also, and and then there were other hand balancers that I was following simply as inspiration.
Mm.
Yeah, like all all these circus crazy guys.
I know one story where you got in contact with Claude,
Hmm.
and you tried to say, "Oh, how do I get a hand balancer?" And you said, "No, you're already a hand balancer." Something like this. I hear.
Yeah, this was because, as I never really had a teacher
Mm.
that I could work one to one or for a long time,
Mhm.
but I always wanted to. It's just that I was training back then in Costa Rica,
Mm.
so I remember I heard stories about Claude and this teacher that was training handstands in France, and he was very known
Mm.
between these other hand balancers. So the first time that I traveled to Europe, it was 2016, and then that meant that I already had 6 years of very dedicated practice.
Mhm.
So when I stayed in his house, I was 1 week following his training, and for me it was like, as I never did circus school, yes, for me it
Mhm.
was the graduation of, okay, he I was still deciding whether if I wanted to do circus school, but because I was so into handstands, he also told me that I should just,
To be a teacher
yeah,
or
that I could
strive
already
for.
strive for performing, and he got rid of some insecurities that I had, as of course I was always telling myself that because I didn't do school or I didn't do it professionally in the start, maybe I was not going to be able to pursue a career out of hand balancing. I don't know, all these things that you tell yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
But when after training with Claude, I also decided that I wanted to, that I could not stay in school, as I already made my own school
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from other, yeah, also from other people and other disciplines.
You already had a strong practical part, and then you, yeah, you already did your 10,000 hours,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, and I was lucky that I was part of this other company in Costa
Mm-hmm.
Rica that was, it's called Punto Muerto, and with them we were doing a bit more, like more contemporary circus work and creating every year. So I also had a performing experience, and I did a lot of commercial work too in Costa Rica
Mm-hmm.
as a hand balancer. So that meant that I got rid of the fear of being on stage, and that's how circus became a thing. Because
Mm-hmm.
before that, I was just training handstands because I like them.
And you also
Yeah.
perform right now, right?
Yeah, so I'm always like trying to balance performing and teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and I never know how to find the right balance because when I'm teaching a lot, yeah, I just miss being on stage, and the opposite happens too.
And when did you start with the head balancing? Was it also with Claude or even before?
That one, the head balancing was Claude, the one that gave
Ah,
me the first
mm-hmm.
steps, because before that I was just doing it on my own
Yeah,
and not really getting much progress.
yeah.
Um, so I think when I really started training with a method
Mm-hmm.
that also was kind of simple, it was
Mm-hmm.
not like handstands. There were not very a lot of drills or complicated stuff. You know, like I had the basic. He just gave me like the basic positions,
Yeah,
and he was like, continue working like this,
yeah.
and I listened, and it paid out. um, but I handstands, I think I did it as a sort of like, again, you don't need a head to learn how to balance on your head to improve your handstands, but
Yeah.
it can help with awareness. And I also thought that as a performer, it's good to have this as a tool because you can rest your shoulders,
Yes, yes, yes.
and it's just also fun to practice. So
Yeah, also really love this amazing discipline, and it's
yes.
also it's really yeah, it's good for the balance. And what I also notice is like a lot of people, I don't know, maybe it's because of the internet and how it works with your generation, like discovering Yuval Ayalon online, and then starting like in your 20s with really professional handstand stuff, like also Miguel Santana. He was
Yep.
also 25 when he started with
Yep.
more professional stuff, and yeah, it's amazing to see. And yeah, I also started when I was in that age. I met Yuval Ayalon on a workshop, and he also taught me about the head balancing before I tried it out on my own. But I couldn't really figure it out, and sometimes it was nice to have some right input, and then it's magically happens
Yeah.
and get shaped in the right way. And yeah, I also feel really good about this handstand convention here in Sicily. It's also like for the shaping and getting sharper on certain things. It's a really amazing place here. And it's your third time, fourth time in
I think this is like the fourth time,
fourth
yeah,
time.
because I've been in all the conventions. It kind of became like a habit,
Yeah,
a plan every at the end of, I mean, at the start of September
yeah.
every year, and yeah, I really like it. I definitely agree with you that having people together that also like to be upside down, and it's just good as inspiration. You
Yeah,
can take a lot from that.
yeah.
It can also be intimidating to people, especially newcomers,
Mm.
because they see all these crazy um, people training, and I know that can also be intimidating. But
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that when you see all this practice together, you just see that it's people sharing,
Mm.
and that everyone, of course, has their own path. It's like they say, it's a good thing because you feel more support, and I think that the people realize this after the first days too, because then they also see that we just want to play and everyone wants to play, and we are on the same boat trying to discover what we can do with our bodies, and handstands, it's a great way to do that. Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline, but also it's in a way, how can I say it, like a lifestyle. No? It can actually become, for me, it became that. It became a lifestyle because not all the time I need to have my discipline. Sometimes I really feel like I want to train and do things, and other times I just need to push it through.
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to have people around, because they makes you feel like you want to keep training and reach better goals and just expand what you know.
And also, I find it an interesting balance between playing around and then maybe now I'm here at Extravaganza and I see you guys train and I'm now I have to push in some really hard work to get onto the next level, and it's a kind of a nice balance to sometimes I just play a little bit around and then I get motivated and I see, okay, how do can I progress, and then I do some little bit more drilling work, and
Yeah.
eventually and in the future it combines more into a warm-up, and then you grow and everybody it's just a nice exchange here. I can really recommend. And yeah, it's also like a lot of levels here, beginner to
Yes, yes,
to
you have.
very advanced
Yeah,
people.
you have everything.
And maybe also for beginners it's just like, I think it's also a nice introduction, just playing around with starting into handstand, not be intimidated or I can't hold a handstand yet. The handstand is for me not the first step of doing actually a handstand. For me it's just like get more used to just putting the hands on the floor, and then maybe you have some advice for beginners, except the playfulness and the training for the beginning part.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, it's playfulness. It's always good. Finding a training body, it's always good, because then it can help when you're not, if you don't have the motivation or discipline, whatever it takes. But I also think that as advice, I would say that it is good to have a plan. If you want to see, like progress, and not necessarily the progress will feel fast. Normally, it doesn't feel like that, especially people when they are starting, when they are starting old. Because again, handstand is it can still be very inclusive. It's
Yeah.
not like other disciplines, but it does make a difference if you start older.
Yeah.
So my advice is that you find a plan and that you stick to it and stick to the basics, and just know what is your actual current level, so that you can work more on the things that you already know how to do and make those things better, rather than focusing only on the long-term goals. So this is what sometimes people call the basic handstand training. So for example, I have a base in my training that I always commit to, and of course these basics, let's call them like this, like
Yeah.
basics in handstands, they can all evolve
Yeah.
in terms of endurance and in terms of increasing or putting new shapes or movement, but they're still basics. And that means that if you are a complete beginner, and the basics for you means doing a 30-second handstands against the wall, then that's always should be part of your plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I mean, like having a plan so that you know that you did your training, rather than just playing around. And the way I do it is like this, even now, like I try to follow my first basics in the two arms and the one arms, and I only leave the playfulness for the end. And then I can just play, and if I feel like doing other things, I can
Yeah.
take my time. But it's good to stick to a plan, and sometimes if you have the choice, also stick to a teacher, because then it's also good. Otherwise you will have to spend a lot of time, I don't know, finding
Figuring
other
it out.
strategies,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
with your phone and filming if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're like a very, very advanced practitioner. And how do you usually, here we train a lot, like 2 times a day or maybe 3 times a day, or it feels like we train a lot or just the whole day. And normally Do you also train that much in the circus school, or is it like more intense periods and less intense periods?
If I go back only 2 years ago, I was still in that intensity of trying to train every day. And yeah, sometimes I would train, I don't know, 2 hours in the
Yeah.
morning and 1 hour and a half in the evening.
Yeah.
And then total, it would be 3 or 4 hours and one rest day. But right now, I actually don't feel like that. I feel that I don't train as much. Maybe it's also due to, I don't know, getting older and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just have other things in your head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I still keep my practice and I try to keep it daily.
Yeah.
So for example, I have a kind of like a break right now of training when I've been traveling and it's hard to train when you're traveling, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always try to still do a little bit of my own handstand practice. And so I think the load of training, of course, you need to just know how much you can handle, so that there is not so that the risk of injury doesn't increase too much. Of course, there is always risk, but if you're smart about it, I think you can slowly, of course, build up your training routine so that you can do maybe 2 sessions a day. And actually, doing this might even be good because it means that you have like like you do your morning session where you do your holds and endurance or your basics, and then later in the evening you can be more playful and just
Yeah.
work specific tricks, or because then you already did your homework, let's
Yeah,
say like that.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
can also work. But again, it's up to you. Like it's not I would recommend for everyone to train 3 hours every day.
Yeah.
I think if you do even half an hour of good handstand practice, this can already have benefits. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that
yeah.
you should not, if you want to see progress again, I don't think you should do this one time a week and then just do it again next month, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What I also find really fascinating about the handstand discipline is also like it's the technique. It's not only you have to a good technique in order to. It's not only like strength and physical endurance. It's not like, oh yeah, I run now faster and faster. It's also a skill, and I think the technical component and doing things efficient, and this is also really nice for the longevity of aging and then adapting. And yeah, for me it's amazing to see also like my teacher was Yuval Ayolon, like, and he was he's in his 50s, and seeing him, he still is like, wow, I want to become that. And he's normally look other guys in his 50s, and they they are not like even sportive like this. And then yeah, it's just an interesting journey how you can do it even like in your 60s, 70, maybe until close before death, or until the end of your life.
And it's also endless, like you will always find something to keep you humble and to be like, oh, okay, I need to keep working. And I have this very present, like some people sometimes ask you what is your current goal or what you're working on. I'm like, I mean, I have my own goals, but I even have goals that I might know probably will never achieve, but they're just like these standards that I aspire to. And also the little goals are important too, like making things look a little bit easier for the body. It's actually the goal I have now.
I can definitely see this with swiping the board a little bit.
Yeah, but also because of this thing of longevity. If I just had if I kept pushing myself without having this into my, I mean, without thinking in the future, then it also means that my practice eventually might be very good now, but later it's not going to be good because my body will just not be able to handle the same amount of work when I'm older. So what I want to do, one of the goals that I have and that I think is always good to have, is to make things easier on your body, and that's what you do with technique. So as you know, like handstand, it takes strength, but it's not really a strength skill only. It's really about, it's very mental, it's very focused, and yeah, technique makes a lot of difference, and also personal in a way, at least. Like what I mean is that there are different techniques that, even though everyone's speaking the same vocabulary and we are all in the same page here, you still see different bodies and different ways of doing things.
Different anatomy.
Yeah, different
Yeah.
anatomies, and you might even find between professionals that they have slightly different ways of where to look, what to feel,
Mm.
where to lock the shoulder, how to stay in
Mhm.
position, and this also means that it's their own approach. So in a way, handstands are very personal, and that's why they are more like the introverts. You know, it's like if you had to see it as hand to hand balancing versus, for example, acro
Mhm.
balance or hand to hand,
Mhm.
then it's more extrovert in a way that you are with someone, you have to let go of your balance. But when
Mhm.
you are alone, it's just you and the floor, and you just have to be very like listening very much to the body, to the
Mhm.
little sensations, and this is also why I like the practice, because you can do it anywhere and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's personal.
And maybe I want to touch a little bit about
Hmm.
your job in the circus and
Hmm.
how do you now approach a circus with your students? What people typically come? It's like a semester, like studying, or
Well, it's where I am teaching now. It's very physical,
hmm
because they receive just a lot of other disciplines, not only handstands. It's not a
okay,
handstand school,
yeah,
which means that it's tough because
hmm
sometimes they have, for example, 9 hours of handstand specialty
hmm
if they are doing
a
handstands
day or
a week, which is not a lot, but that's with a teacher.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then they can stay and train after the school is
yeah.
over at 5 p.m. until like 8. So they could still do a lot. The
hmm
thing is that the other disciplines also take some time and energy.
What are the other
Well,
disciplines, for example?
they are doing also like acrobatics, trampoline,
hmm
dance, and
hmm
some of them again are very physical. They do a
Yeah.
1 hour preparation of physical preparation every morning, and it's not necessarily specific for handstands because they want to keep it more general. You know,
hmm
like it's a school where they want to give you some other tools. And this is all good, but it's not always the best for the people that are not used to handling a lot of big amounts of work
hmm
every week.
mm
And for hand balancers, it's pretty tough because handstand is still very physical. So, for example, maybe it's not the same if you're doing other things like, I mean, juggling, for example, is physical too,
hmm
but it's different. You can still like train your 6 hours, and maybe you're not gonna be completely dead
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the next day. So in the school, what I do with them is more physical,
hmm
simply because even though I like the performing part, and,
hmm
and, and I really think this is important to also know why is that you're doing what you're doing,
hmm
and who are you on stage. I don't really have the time sometimes to put so much energy into that, because my time with my students is very limited, and then I also have my own training.
Yeah, yeah,
So in the
yeah.
school, I am just trying to guide them through frustration sometimes, and trying to be the best spotter that I can for
Yeah,
them.
yeah, you're a really good
Yeah.
spotter, and yeah, it's also I think very underrated the spotting part, like being a good spotter. And you taught me this 1 year ago, the first
Mhm.
time I heard it before time. Like it's also a discipline of being a good spotter, and yeah, and I also hear like the option like you can also go to INEC to do just a week or something like this.
Yeah, this is good for you to mention,
Mhm.
because this is also something that I think I can do at least this year more.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's like you don't need to enroll in the circus school if you just want to train handstands.
Mhm.
Just because I will be there, it's what I've been doing sometimes is that I receive up to 3 students, and
Mhm.
then when they come, they train with me like after school classes. We just find a time,
Mhm.
and the way it works, it's pretty simple. It's more one to one, because
Mhm.
I also like this. Like I think it has more benefits to work
Mhm.
like this. So in that way, I'm more old school. If I had more time, I would do also more online teaching. But
Yeah, yeah.
for the moment, I don't have much time. So I've already had some good experience with other students, and it's like a 1 week intense.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you come in alone or if you come in together, it's always good to have your partner similar levels, so
Mhm.
that it becomes more personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to become really good at handstand, go to Maujara in Porto. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast
Thank you.
today.
Sure.
And yeah,
Thank you.